much for Anand. So thank you very much, Pondy Lit Fest, for having me here. Well, if Anand could start on something like, if you've not had your income tax filed, get out of this room. In the same vein, I'd like to tell him not to see me for the next 3-4 days, because it can be projected as, how dare you, Anand, come and apologize to me. That would be the projection, saying I called them to apologize to Anand, stay away from me for a whole week. No, actually, I think it's the introduction is a very fair way of putting what we have probably together, people of India and the political leadership and the administrations in various states have achieved. But even so, there are so many fundamental things which still have to improve. There's no way in which you can look the other way when these data are spread before us. So, in a forum like this, and also from the finance ministry, it's very difficult to just talk on specifics and also to talk on what could be done immediately to address this, because it will have its own implication of, oh, the finance minister is committed on this, how much would she give? So I'm going to talk a bit on the larger issues and then probably address one or two of these concerns. We can never forget the fact that it is the efficiency of governance which delivers on fundamental ground realities. Whether it's malnutrition, whether it is the number of schools with quality teachers, whether it is measuring the outcome in schools, each grade for its learning outcomes and so on, it is a question of how governance is taken down to the last point. The difference between our government, and I'll take the name of the Honorable Prime Minister, the difference between a governance under an experienced Prime Minister as opposed to experience maybe, but let's say the dedication and the kind of commitment for the national cause being very different. The outcomes can also be different. So sometimes we say 45 years of one party rule but has not delivered, whereas 10 years of what Prime Minister Modi has delivered is so clearly before us and so on. The cutting edge difference is if the commitment is I have to deliver on every point rather than be at the top, lead from the front, but down below and on the specifics, each one does its own, his own or her own, even with intentions being good. So the difference in this approach is from the time a particular section has to be addressed or a particular scheme has to be launched, Prime Minister Modi's operational, which all of us have understood and we work with him on that, is from the time you conceive a project to the time it is completely taken to saturation point on the ground, he monitors it continuously. So it will look as if some people might comment, does he micromanage? It's very difficult to believe. But he does, because that is the stuff he's made of. And he thinks he needs to be clear that it is progressing towards the outcome that he had laid out at the beginning. There's no good announcing it, no good putting money there, but you have to see that it operationalizes. So when you're taking this approach, your outcomes can definitely be read out like the way Anand did. But if I were to do it, they'd say, okay, she's come here to boast about what she has achieved in the last couple of years, but I'm sorry, so that will not be accepted. I can quite understand that. But today what Anand has done is what many of the media and also many of the observers are doing if they have that thought, but if they have a different kind of an agenda, obviously they'll not speak about it. But it is necessary, therefore, to recall what India has achieved in the last few years, particularly in the last 10 years, only because this has been possible only with a government which has remained absolutely beyond corruption. Not an element of corruption in anything that we do. No pecuniary advantages, no policy distortions, no subjectivity anywhere. Any scheme, everybody gets it. And that is why this debate about freebies acquire a dimension, and we are most often told, even you are engaging in freebies. No, we are not engaging in freebies for two reasons. One, we understand the section for which we have to give it. Two, in the states where we are providing it, we clearly understand the state's financial situation, and we clearly say the scheme will be subject to the assembly and passing it through the budget. And therefore, the freebies are not fancy cuckoo land decisions which have no collaboration with the state's own policies. So that's going through the process, and states which have rushed into giving these kind of promises are today facing severe crisis. I don't need to name them. You know, you are aware of states which promised returning to the old pensions. When you can't sustain it, and that is why today, with a committee of experts talking with stakeholders, we have come up with a unified pension scheme. So, the reason why I have gone to giving you these examples is to say quite a lot of mind application happens at every stage. It is not left to just say one section of the administration. Everybody and also the stakeholders are brought in, and decisions are taken like that. So therefore, where are we now? The list of achievements, which list of what has been achieved in the last 10 years, and particularly in the last 1 year, particularly in the last 5 years, are all very briefly presented before you by Anand. But I want to say two things about what India is facing today, and two things about where we are better off than many others today. We are better off because there is a sense of continuity. Like it or not, and all of us may, at least some of us may grieve, could the number be better? Could the number have been better? But the fact remains, it is Prime Minister Modi who has formed the government for the third time successively. So that brings in an element of continuity, stability in policy. And therefore, the priorities, which are make sure that India is safe, make sure the Indian fundamentals are strong, make sure you know the destination where you have to go, and therefore the path has to be laid out for all of us to benefit from it. And that is why, for a moment, I'd like to go back to talking about the global situation, the uncertainties, the rapid changes in regime. 50 countries have had their elections this year, or some going through now. Changes are happening rapidly, and in that process, uncertainty set in, because the newer agenda of the new winning party is again going to reset the country's priorities, and in that sense, India has been fortunate. And therefore, the priority that Prime Minister Modi gives for national security, particularly because I borrow one of my friend's words, no nation can be secure in isolation. You cannot say I've built a very strong armed forces, it is well endowed, and therefore I'm going to be very safe. No. Today you need to have friends, you need to have such alliances, otherwise you're just going to not have enough helping hand if there is a contingency arising. You need to have situations where people stand up for your cause. For this, I'd like to just say how even traditionally non-aligned countries which led to a downsizing of their militaries, have today realized that they have to buck up, they have to have defenses, they have to have their economies being strong as much as money is for setting up their defense in a stronger way. So, in the early 2000s, again, the question of inclusivity. It is not just a norm or an ideal or in a country with disparity that has to take precedence over self-sufficiency or Atmanirbharta. It is important for very many other reasons as well, but it is important for every country. So you need to strengthen financial inclusion. You have to get more people on board so that they can benefit by the banking services and also see where they can acquire that little credit to run their businesses. Then you need to have targeted welfare delivery. I want to here take a little sensational position, and I'm sure many in this audience would question me saying, why do you want to say this? Because I've heard voices coming which are slightly different, saying, why is it that you still have to feed 80 crore people by taxing the middle class? I want to humbly submit. I want to humbly submit. But reducing the burden of taxation is one thing which I will have to address, and I concede more can be done. I will try to make it more. But you can never compare it saying, I'm paying taxes, it is only for this 80 crore to get free food. Sorry, I differ slightly. Pardon me for that. Yes, you can question about efficiency in delivery. Yes, you can question, is it 80 crore or is it less or is it more? All worthy questions we need to have to address, and that's where hopefully when the census happens, we've heard the Home Minister say that sooner it will commence. We'll get the actual data and we'll be able to do it. But till then, for us to think there is some other idea with which 80 crore is being kept up, I think we need to sit back for a moment, pause, and then talk about it. I've just taken this opportunity to bring that element in, but targeted welfare delivery, whether it is for medical, whether it is for health, whether it is for food, whether it is for children's education, whether it is for overall well-being of the family, we need to do targeted welfare delivery. And digitization, as I said, and economy needs to have more and more formalization. What sounded a bit of a sweet music in years when Anand said the number of people who are paying tax, it can be better. And it is not